To Placement Pulse, where we decode campus to corporate journey. Placement Pulse is your one-stop platform for MBA aspirants, new grad, and freshers who's ready to hop onto their journey and learn group discussions, questions, and personal interview even before they start. So today we are going to decode another very inspiring journey from campus to corporate. We have our guest today, Tarana Rao, a dynamic professional who has made her mark in policymaking across different states and completed her MBA from ISB through a competitive GMAT score, and she has successfully transitioned from pre-sales to sales at HCL. Her journey offers valuable lessons for MBA aspirants and young professionals alike. Could you walk us through your journey, Tarana?
Thanks so much, Divya. I'm happy to be here. I hope it's helpful. Thanks for the introduction. So I graduated in economics. I did my BA in economics from St. Xavier's College in Mumbai. I graduated in 2015. And from that point till my MBA, which was 8 years, roughly 8 years of work, I worked in the public policy and government relations space, as you mentioned, right? So my first job was straight out of campus placement. And that's when I moved to New Delhi. I was working with a firm that did government consulting. So essentially the government and various arms of the government and their agencies are your client, and you help them in like last mile delivery, which is implementation of their schemes, etc. So one of the first projects I worked on was for NSDC, which is the National Skill Development Corporation, right? So this was in 2015-16, and then I've done several different projects since then, right? So I won't go into too much detail, but a lot of it was, so I moved also on ground. I moved to Bihar. I was based in Patna for throughout my career for around 1.5 years, but initially for 6 months, where we were consulting with the chief minister's office basically, and we were helping them. They were the newly elected chief minister at that time, so we were basically helping them implement their whatever they promised during the election campaign. So setting up the processes with the government to help them track those goals, etc. So a lot of different things. So I worked on ground. I worked in an election campaign as well in UP in 2017 for the state government elections, and then following that, I did a fellowship called the LAMP Fellowship. So basically, that's a fellowship wherein young professionals under the age of 25 work with a member of parliament for an entire year. So that really opened my eyes up to the entire world of policy in terms of research, analysis, understanding how policies are thought through, formulated, and then they come into power through the processes of the parliament. So that was a really transformative experience. And following that, again, I went back and worked on ground in Bihar for another year. And then I had a stint again in consulting. And that's when I came back to New Delhi, and my clients were basically private corporations. So we were helping them with their government relations and helping them, how they should build their relationship with government, and how they, because in India, if you want to do any sort of business, you need a lot of approvals from government. You need to follow so many regulations, etc. So a lot of companies, especially multinational companies, need the help of advisors who kind of help them navigate the regulatory ecosystem. So that was the sort of role I played. So, that's where my public policy background, my understanding of government systems, etc., really came into play. So I had a very diverse experience before MBA, and that's how I got into ISB. And ISB is great because it is targeted at people who have a bit more work experience, and they value that diverse sort of work experience. So that's where ISB came in. And at ISB, I met a lot of different people from different walks of life, right? And when I was there, I kind of one of my very close friends, in fact, was an account executive, right, which is a sales role at Salesforce, and she had a very diverse experience in tech sales. So that's when I thought, oh my God, this seems like something I want to do post MBA as well, right? And when I went into MBA, I knew I wanted to work in the healthcare space, in the biopharma space, right? And when this opportunity at HCLTech came up post that, it kind of brought in the healthcare biopharma piece as well as the tech sales. I mean, it felt like it could lead up to that. So yeah, and that's kind of how I made a pivot into this career right now at HCLTech. It's been a year and a half that I've been at HCLTech, and like you mentioned, I started off in a pre-sales role, and I've recently moved into a sales role. So that's a very high-level description. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Yeah, indeed. So that is too diversified. You have jumped from one to another to another to another, and seems like the way you have described it seems like you're quite adaptable to all of it, and you have done quite well in it. So I would like to know that, how does this function? So this is for the audience, just the basic knowledge. How does it function? So you got placed into a company which is dealing with all the public policy with in collaboration with government agencies. So how does that go for you? I'll put my question through. So that one. Then you went on to work on in ground, like you went to Patna, Bihar. What was the
Yeah.
transition between that? Then you went, like you came back to UP and you worked in an election campaign. So was it all your choices, or you were just, going ahead with the job wherever it took you?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question, Divya. To be honest, like I mean, if I can answer your second question first, like I think sometimes you just, you play the hand that life deals you, right? Like you kind of
Right, right.
see where your opportunities kind of take you and you move ahead with that. So a lot of it has been that for sure. But it was with the same company, right? So it was in the space. So firstly, that is what it is, right? It just felt like I had lived my entire life in Mumbai prior to graduating from college. So
Right.
every time I got a new opportunity with my job, right? First it was moving to Delhi, then it was moving to Bihar, then it was moving to UP. It just opened up more and more of the world to me, right? It opened up more in terms of, so I was always very interested in public policy, like in the intersection of government. I mean, so my, intersection of policy and economics. So I'm an economics graduate, but
Yeah.
how it worked in my colleges, you also study two other subjects in your first 2 years. So I
Right.
was also a political science graduate, right? So the political science plus economics combination always made me very interested in like how government works, how policies work, what things work on ground, etc. So that interest was always there, and that's how I got into this company that did so many different diverse things. So while it seems like many different projects, they all had a common thread, right? It all had to deal with how things work on ground in India, at least with respect to how government influences. Initially, it was like, it was social programs. So, like for example, National Skill Development Corporation,
Yeah.
it's targeted at the youth to increase their skills, right? So it's about how can we make our, the demographic dividend that India has, how can we skill them for the world that's going to come up, right? And then when I moved on ground, again, the election promises we were working on were things like bringing safe drinking water to all, ensuring that we are able to construct like, IHHs, which is like, latrines, increasing access to sanitation, increasing basic education, so it was those sort of social goals that were part of the projects that we set up there. So there was a common thread, but I did kind of follow the opportunities that came along. So the first 2 years, which I think opened up my eyes to this entire public policy world, happened because of my job. And then LAMP, etc., were also new opportunities that I got to know from colleagues and stuff who I met at my job, right? And the public policy world is very vast, but it's also interconnected. So you get to know about new opportunities, what you can do, etc. So yeah, you just keep your eyes and ears open. You see where like things take you, and you play the hand that gets dealt to you. At least that was my experience prior to MBA, how it happened. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So can you please put some light on LAMP fellowship? Like that would be a, yeah, good thing for our viewers.
Super. Awesome. So basically, LAMP fellowship, it's a 1 year fellowship that's open to
Okay.
people who are under the age of 25, and it expands to legislative assistant to a member of parliament, right? That's what LAMP stands for. And just give me a second. Let me shut this. And yeah, like the name suggests, what it does is you get placed with so they select around 45 to 50 candidates per year, and you get assigned to one active member of the parliament for an entire year, right? So how it works is 3 sessions of parliament. And you basically are their legislative aid. So you like work with them, you help them in drafting their question. So in parliament, how it works is MPs they're representatives of the people, right? They're supposed to
Right.
hold government accountable. So there are many different tools through which you do that. For example, MPs submit questions in parliament, they raise issues, they have speeches. So that is one major section of it. So you work with your MP, you help them decide what their agenda is, what are issues close to them, and you help them draft questions and put them out. So basically,
Yeah.
you're a legislative aid to your MP, right? Like you help them in their entire parliamentary duties, etc. And you conduct a lot of research and analysis for them. So when they go to parliament, you basically need to prepare them. If there's any new bill coming up, you get the bill text, you go through it, you critically analyze it, you bring up any things that you think are issues, and you interact so much with civil society organizations. So NGOs, think tanks, etc., keep coming to your MP's office and kind of say, "Hey, this is a new bill. These are things that I think are issues." So you listen to people from across the aisle. Some people will say this is a great bill. Some people will say this is a bill that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And you kind of
Absolutely.
synthesize all of that and you prepare your boss. So it was a very great experience. It teaches you about policy, about research analysis, and about how policy making in the country works. Yeah.
Absolutely insightful. And is there any eligibility criteria for this? How do you enter into this? How do you apply for it?
Oof. So it's there is more detailed eligibility criteria. It's run by a company called PRS Legislative. So if
Okay.
people are
Okay.
interested, they should look it up. But it's under. I mean, essentially, you need to be under 25 years old when you
Okay.
apply to
That's
it.
the, okay.
And
Okay.
yeah, and there's an application process. Like when I did it, I had to submit an essay, I had to submit like my resume and stuff like that, and then there are 2 rounds of interviews, and then you get shortlisted. But PRS Legislative runs it, and people who are interested should definitely look it up.
Okay. Okay. Sure. Definitely. So, You also mentioned that when you went to ISB, you decided that you want to go into healthcare and
Yeah.
biopharma. Like,
Mhm.
how did you end up deciding that, and what drew you towards that? Because prior to that, your work experience is quite diverse and very, very interesting, I must say. Like, even if when you're talking about it, I'm feeling like, okay, I mean, it's really interesting to, learn so many things. And when you know that you're actually making some change, which is directly impacting people's life. So, what drew
Yeah.
you towards healthcare and biopharma? Was the goal the same, that you have to impact people's life, or how is it going now? Yeah.
I mean, so firstly, I mean, impact and making a difference to people's life is certainly a motivation. But when you work in the field of public policy, you realize, how many steps and how many people are between you and the final beneficiary. So,
Right.
firstly, I mean, that was a goal, but I think that's the
Right.
reality of how things work, right?
Yeah.
In terms of biopharma and healthcare, so right before I came to ISB, like I mentioned, I was working as a consultant to private organizations, right? Like we were helping
Okay.
them in their government relations
Right.
work. So, a lot of the clients I worked with were from the pharmaceutical industry.
Okay.
So kind of seeing what work they were doing in India, how they were dealing with government. And one of the clients who I worked with had two key drugs that were used in the treatment of COVID-19 as well. So during the pandemic, like I just saw the sort of complexity in what how biopharma companies run in general. It just felt very interesting to me. And through that phase, like I firstly got interested in biopharma as an industry as a whole. And secondly, I also realized that it's an industry, the business is so impacted by the policies and the government relations, right? So
Right.
I was also starting to get a bit more interested in the business side of it, which is why MBA also started making sense. But at the same time, I wanted to still use the skills that I had till then. So, which is why at that point in time, like a regulated industry like biopharma seemed very interesting. And so biopharma, healthcare were all interesting aspects to me. And I had very influential senior leaders at my previous organization who were like very leading, eminent doctors from India, etc. So just learning about their experience had me interested in the healthcare space as well. So that's kind of what made me interested in this industry.
Okay. So, what skills do you think that played a vital role for you to bring from where you coming? So, you started as a or like you did your BA in economics, then you're throughout your
Mhm.
journey policy into policy making, then into then getting into ISB. Like, what skills were the most essential, and you used it up to the most? Like, what were the most
Got it.
important factors that you used in here?
Got it. Got it. So I think, I mean, if I were to actually link it to my let's say pre MBA career and now post MBA fledgling career, then I can kind of tell you what helped, because what I was doing before is completely different from what I'm doing now. Like
Yeah.
even when I went to business school, I thought I would be part of the more, in a pharma company, like working on strategy, marketing, things like that, which clearly is not what I'm doing now, right? Like
Yeah.
now, pharma companies are again my client. So I think that happened because of the mindset change that I wanted to bring in tech in my career. Like I wanted, like the industry I was interested in was biopharma, and I also became interested in account management and sales in the tech part of it as well, right? So that's how I evolved my thinking to want to come to HCL. In terms of the skills itself, again, like I mentioned, completely different roles, completely different industries.
Yes,
But a
absolutely.
few of the things that help me in my career now as well is, I think, certainly number one, like a lot of relationship building, right? So right now,
Okay.
even in my pre-sales role, a lot of what we have to do is we basically support the sales team in taking end-to-end solutions to the customer. And in
Okay.
order to make those end-to-end solutions, you need to work with a lot of different teams within HCLTech, right? Because
Right.
these what you take to the customer, what they're going to buy, are multi-million dollar contracts. So it's not
Yes.
a very simple
Yes.
thing that you're going to sell.
Right.
So
Right.
it's many internal teams that come together to create a comprehensive package that you can take, correct? So that
Right.
means as a pre-sales person, you have to manage a lot of different stakeholders. You have to build relationships with various teams that come together to build the end-to-end solution. So
Right.
one of the key skills you need is stakeholder management. And I feel like that is something I had in all the roles that I had to do prior to MBA as well, right? When you're dealing with
Right.
government, when you're dealing with NGOs, when you're dealing with people on the ground, you have to know how that you become very aware of the fact that you are just one person in a very large system. So in order to do anything, you need to know how to play well with others, and you need to
Right.
know how that stakeholder management skill, right? So that's
Right.
certainly one of the very important things that I think has helped me. Secondly, I think relationship building. So any sort of relationship building is important. So and relationship and trust building doesn't happen in a day. It happens over multiple meetings. Little bit of give and take, understanding what the other person needs, being able to meet them halfway,
Right.
etc. And I think that's something that also has helped me in pre-sales and definitely in sales as well, right? Trying to understand that these are different stakeholders with different sort of requirements. How do I, as the person in the middle, understand what they need and be able to provide them something that, and connect the right people for that?
Right.
And certainly how to manage a lot of complexity. because
Right,
there are so
right.
many different people you're dealing with. How do you balance different people's interests and requirements? So those are things. And I think more on the softer side, two things. One is certainly, being able to deal, firstly, being able to deal with a lot of slowness. Like
Okay.
it taught me a lot of patience. I'm not a very patient person, but when you work with government and when you work on ground, everything moves extremely slowly. And you are just one person in like a huge ecosystem of people trying to, bring about some sort of change or do anything, be it a
Yeah.
corporate, be it a NGO, be it whoever it is, be it a government, right? So I think learning to accept the pace of the process is something I learned. So a lot of patience. And secondly, because of the work I was doing, I was dealing with a lot of very senior people very early on, whether those were
Okay.
IAS officers, whether they were
Yeah.
senior members of parliament, whether they were senior, say, executives from companies. I think that really helped me build my confidence in terms of how do I, as a very young professional, be able to hold my own in environments where I'm dealing with such people regularly, and also be able to take a step back and say, hey, these are people with decades and decades of experience. How do I
Yeah.
know when to put my point across, and how do I know when to listen? So
Yeah.
I feel like that's a soft skill that really helped me prior and after, like the bridge between my previous career and the current career.
Yeah, absolutely great. L- like you utilized all the skills that you learned during your job, like you were learning and implementing it at the same time. You bought it until your MBA in ISB, and now as well you
Yes.
are thriving. So
Yeah. So at ISB itself, sorry if I didn't answer that piece. I think ISB really likes diverse candidates. And they,
right.
so I feel like the sort of journey I had before and being able to tell the story of who I was in those 8 years before ISB really helped, right? So ISB firstly really likes diverse candidates. So I think that sort of thing works in your
Yeah.
favor if you're able to put it into words. If you're able to say, look, this is where I come from, this is what I bring to the table, this is what I'll bring to your classroom, and this is how I see my career going forward. So I think that's very important in terms of what you can take to the story at ISB.
Great, great. Yeah, yeah, indeed. So one more question, that this job at HCL, like of pre-sales, was this something you chose, or that was just a company that came to college and you went ahead with it, and then you got to know that, okay, I'm going to do pre-sales? Because it happens like often that company,
Mhm.
picks a candidate, then they decide a role for them, and they just put into like if we talk about tier 3 or tier 2 colleges, they hire people in bulk and then they put them in certain roles. So how was it that for you?
Got it, got it. So I at HCLTech, I joined HCLTech as part of their a program called the Global Engagement Manager Program. So
Okay.
that's essentially what they use for like early career associates. So
Okay.
people fresh out of business school join as part of that program. So it was at least communicated to me very clearly that you're going to be part of the pre-sales team. Something
Okay.
which in HCLTech is called the Practices and Solutions Group. So of course, so I did know that pre-sales was what I was getting into. My end goal was, my end goal as in my mid career goal at this point was sales, but I knew that I need to take the shot that I'm getting right now. Correct. So that's what HCL Tech kind of offered me. It offered me a path to the role I wanted, as well as an entry into the industry I was kind of interested in. Right. I wanted to be in healthcare, and I wanted to be like in the tech IT part. So it was like a good gateway. And
Yeah.
they were clear about it. Like I knew.
Yeah.
Of
Right.
course, when you day to day now, your job is very different from your JD. I think we all need to
Yeah, right, right,
to
right.
accept that. So there's always ups and downs. But for the most part, I knew I was going into pre-sales.
Okay, great. So you were getting everything that you wanted, the tech side and the
I
pre-sales.
mean,
Yeah.
let's
Best of both
let's. I
worlds.
mean,
Yeah.
I think you also have to, like you have to deal with the hands that deal with the cards that life deals you, right? So you have to
Right.
also, like, it's part of you making peace with what you get, right? You have
What do
to
you get?
take what
Right,
you
right.
have and see, how closes does it align with my plans?
Right,
And yeah,
right,
so
right.
in that sense, it aligns. So let's see. Yeah.
So now when I see you talking, I must tell you that I'm truly inspired by you, and maybe one day in my career I would like to talk the way you are talking. So that's one thing. But
You're so
I would
sweet,
like
Divya.
I would like to learn that how did you started as a new grad? Like as when you were a fresher, what did you observe? What did you learn? How did you brought yourself to this point where you're so confident and you're able to put your story in, I don't know, in like it flows like a river water, It doesn't I mean it's really easy to understand what you're saying, and it's really easy to relate, and a lot is there to learn from you. So how did you learn all of these in your initial stages when you entered the industry as a fresher?
Yeah. No, firstly, thank you, Divya, and likewise. Like, it's just that you're giving me this platform to speak, so which is why it sounds like I'm going, there is a story. But I think early on, I think early on in my career, firstly, I worked in like a startup, right? So in a startup, everybody else is also young, right? So that level of,
Right.
you don't feel so far away from, the people who you're working with. So
Leadership,
I think
right.
that level of, yeah. So
Yeah.
that level of intimidation was low. And of course, everybody, you make a lot of mistakes. Like I make like tons of mistakes even now, So I
Yeah.
think, you just have to kind of, like deal with the fact that you are going to mess up sometimes, and it's okay. And I mean, but what actually helped me is, I think, see, what can you do as a young professional, right? Like, as a young professional, your job is to be sincere, is to be diligent, and it is to show up, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like you're not an expert in anything. You don't know the
Yeah.
industry. You don't
Right.
have the skills. You just bring enthusiasm, right? You have to just bring your enthusiasm and your work ethic, and yeah, and as long as you prepare and as long as you're curious, I think other people around you also want to help you. I mean, I know these are very generic, like high level answers, but I think that's what really helped me early in my career, that you will not know everything. You will have to ask 1,000 questions. You will have to get many things wrong. Like, sometimes, yeah, you'll have to get
Right.
many things wrong, but you have to at least try not to. You have to,
Yeah.
if you're going in for a meeting, do as much of research as you can. If you're doing something, put in as much as, like, I just think it's, at least early in your career, you don't have too much else to offer other than your sincerity and your diligence. So you just need to
Yeah.
show up
Right.
and be curious, and also, I mean, of course, have some, like, you need to feel a bit confident in your, see, if you're prepared, you'll feel confident. You might be
That's true.
wrong, you
That's
might be in the
absolutely
wrong,
true.
you know what I mean, right? And
Yeah.
I think
Right.
other
Right.
people
Absolutely.
recognize that. Even if you're completely wrong, they'll say, okay. And I've been lucky to have good and decent bosses, so I think, that's also an important part. Yeah,
So,
yeah,
what would you like to advise the freshers or the new grads in order to learn, like around the competence, that what sort of skills they should gain? Like one you mentioned,
yeah,
stakeholder management, and
yeah.
like when they are ready to enter a group discussion or a personal interview round. So when we are,
Mhm.
preparing, appearing for exams, and when you are entering, like an aspirant, an MBA aspirant, the
Yeah,
most scary thing is not the exams and the books, but it's like,
yeah,
how are we going to interact with people? So that's like, I mean,
yeah.
that's the first interaction with people in our life. I mean, like
Correct.
interacting with professionals, right? So
Yeah.
how a fresher should deal with it, and what sort of preparation they should do in order to tackle these things?
Oh my gosh, that's such a. I mean, yeah, no, that's a tough question, and it's important. Like, I remember, even I had my ISB interview, etc., and I remember being really nervous before it and being very nervous after also, till I heard back from them. So, that is, it is certainly a nerve wracking thing. I think, what helped me for sure, and what people get, like, just prepare. Know your answers back and forth, right? Like, if you're going for an interview, clearly you've submitted some sort of SOP, you've submitted some essays, you've submitted your resume, etc., right? Like,
Yeah.
I think just know your story back and forth. I think authenticity, and see, if you have to talk about yourself, I mean, you can talk with lots of conviction, right? So
Right.
as long as you don't over exaggerate anything on your CV, over exaggerate anything in your essay, and just stay true to yourself, I think, firstly, it makes the process of having to speak about anything easy. So I know we all are very tempted to write big stories in our
Right.
CVs, in our, essays, etc. So I think that certainly helps. So, authentically know your story, and secondly, prepare. Honestly, like, I think preparation just goes a long way. Maybe do some mock interviews. Like, I remember sitting down with just like my friends, who know me, and who, like, I just said, okay, these are the top 10 questions I think my interviewers are going to ask me. Now you sit with them and then ask me these questions and give me feedback. It's important to take feedback. And even with a career like mine, like, I had like a lot of work experience, right? So sometimes in trying to answer and trying to connect the dots, I would just get extremely muddled up. So then, like, a friend would tell me, look, you're not making any sense right now. These are the things
So
you should be hitting.
you guys did like mock interview within yourself, within your peer group, like friend groups?
Yeah, I literally spoke to,
Okay.
like, I had good friends who were with me when right before I did my interview, and he really helped me. Like, and he was familiar with my career, so there was a lot of back and forth. And you need to be open. You have to practice. Okay, you need to firstly know your story. You need to prepare, and you need to practice. When you sit
Okay.
down, you look at your questions, like, write it down once, refine what you have to say. That's how, at least for the interview, preparation and being honest, like, goes a long way, and take
Right.
feedback. Like, that's
Right.
at least what I did.
So
Yeah.
that's what even Placement Pulse is offering, like a group
Okay.
discussion,
Super.
helping with group discussions, and
Okay.
providing mock interviews. Whosoever is,
Right.
trying to prepare, as you said, like authenticity, then practice, then prepare, then practice. So that's what
Yeah.
Placement Pulse is also offering. So
Super. No, that's
what apart from this, like any example, I would give you that a lot of people, we get question asked around general knowledge. What are the uh,
hmm.
current affairs
Yeah.
that's going on? Did that help you out in ISBA? Was there any this sort of question? What was the question you got in ISB was around?
Oh my God. Okay, so I don't remember too much in detail, but I'll
No
tell you
worries.
what. So a lot of my, so I got a lot of questions about my work itself,
Okay.
right? So because I had so much of work ex, like,
Right.
there was so many things to ask me about my CV itself, and it was a panel of two people, and how, I mean, I think how people can see. So I do think it's important to be aware of current affairs. Okay, so what I
Yeah.
used to do, at least prior to my MBA, is because I used to work in the field, like, in public policy, etc. I was always very aware of what was happening in the industry, at least my industry. Like, I would read newspapers, I would read like industry newsletters and reports as part of my job itself, right? So it was very top of the mind for me. But I think for anybody who's preparing for any field, just read newspapers, like just know what's happening. Maybe if you have to do like a crash course before your I mean, just know what are the top 5, top 10 things happening in your industry, right? If you want to say, talk about moving into marketing, know what's happening in marketing, right? User
Right.
generated content is so big. Know that how is AI being helping, and how is AI helping with content creation. I mean, this is at the top of my head. So
Yeah.
just know the top trends in your industry. You
Yeah.
should be able to talk like somebody who understands the industry. So do a bit of research. I mean, my industry was public policy and government, so I needed to read newspapers and know what government was doing, know what was happening in the in the economy, know which company was doing at a very high level.
Yeah.
But I think just be able to have a conversation essentially. So know the trends. I think if you have a very short period of time and you want to sound like you know what you're talking about in terms of general knowledge, know
Yeah.
the trends in the industry, whatever industry that is.
So, just to conclude, I mean, you said either you have to, like, since you had a very good work experience, you had a lot in your CV. So, all the interview questions revolve around your CV. But it's very
Yeah.
important to know the industry that you're going to work
Yes.
into, then the
Yeah.
authenticity, then prepare, practice, and deliver. That's what we can conclude from here. So, it was really nice having you on board and learn from you. We got to learn a lot of uh, insightful things, be it LAMP fellowship, be it your experience, be
Yeah.
it how did you work on the ground, how did you adapt it to everything that came in your way, and till date you're thriving. Like, it's really inspiring, to be honest. To me it is. So would you like to say a few more words, like in like concluding everything that you said, and maybe takeaway kind of stuff for our viewers?
So thank you so much, Divya. And like, I'm glad. I mean, I just hope it's helpful and not that I've just been
Indeed,
rambling
indeed.
on.
Indeed, it was helpful.
And in terms of takeaways, I mean, I think you just need to. I mean, what takeaways would I have? I think our careers are so long and complicated, and they're just so. I mean, they're just so long. When you're sitting in your
Yeah.
20s, late 20s, you feel so stressed about the very next step,
Yeah.
and you should be, because I think that's what prepares you. But you just need to be open and true to what you want to do and true to your story, and just show up with sincerity in whatever you do. Prepare, whether it's a meeting with an interviewer, whether it's a meeting with your boss, whatever it is. I think that's essentially what it is. Like, be adaptable, like you mentioned, and
Yeah.
prepare and be sincere. Like, I think that's at least what we can do at this point. I don't know. You've asked me so many questions, I can't think of this.
No, no, indeed. I got the crux of that. Prepare, practice, and just the hard work is that something like you
Yeah,
can show
yeah,
the
yeah,
sincerity and the hard work
absolutely.
that you can bring with you when you are a fresher or a new grad.
Yeah,
And later you
yeah.
learn with, like, when you start working hard and you put enough time into it, you get smart eventually. So,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, and opportunities also come, right? I feel like
right, right,
when you start, you never know what's going to happen next. It's good to have a rough plan,
right.
but it's good to be adaptable. If things don't go according to plan, like, how is it closest to your plan, and just keep working towards your goals. That's it. Yeah.
Right. It was really great having a conversation with you. I think a lot of people will get to learn a lot. I learned a lot from you, and will definitely implement a few in my lives too. Like,
Yeah.
so it was
Thank
really
you.
great having you on board.